In our previous post, we showed that December 25th was historically thought to have been the date of Jesus' birth, based on historical evidence and the ancient Hebrew theory of integral age. We debunked the myth that Christians appropriated the pagan observances for Sol, Mithras, or Saturnalia. We will now examine objections to a winter birth for Christ based on the theory that shepherds would not have their flocks outside during the winter, and that Christ was born during Sukkot. It is in fact not uncommon for modern Israelis to keep livestock out in the fields during the winter. Winter is mild in Israel with the average temperature around 50 degrees. Furthermore, we have proof from the Bible that shepherds did watch their flocks during the winter. Quote, Genesis 31 verses 38 to 40. 38 These 20 years have I been with you. Your sheep and your female goats have not failed in bearing. 40 I was parched with heat by day, and chilled with frost by night, and my sleep departed from my eyes. End quote. Thus, Jacob kept watch over livestock during the winter. Further proof that this was a common practice in Israel during Jesus' time can be found in the writings of Canon H. B. Tristram, an author and traveler who visited Palestine frequently and is well known for his writings of Palestine and other Middle Eastern areas. Quote, a little knoll of olive trees surrounding a group of ruins marks the traditional site of the angel's appearance to the shepherds, Migdal Eder, the tower of the flock. But the place where the first Gloria in Excelsis was sung was probably further east, where the bare hills of the wilderness begin, and a large tract is claimed by the Bethlehemites as a common pasturage. Here the sheep would be too far off to be led into the town at night, and exposed to the attacks of wild beasts from the eastern ravines, where the wolf and the jackal still prowl, and where of old the yet more formidable lion and bear had their covert. They needed the shepherd's watchful care during the winter and spring months, when a lone pasturage is to be found on these bleak uplands. Picturesque Palestine, end quote. Migdal Eder is by local tradition the historical site of the angel's appearance to the shepherds. This site is where Passover flocks were kept outside during the winter because the winter rains allowed for the growth of grass, something that the flocks did not get to have during the summer months. It makes sense that shepherds would allow Passover lambs out in the fields during the winter to fatten them on the green grass. Additionally, the lambs would be kept out at night, since the distance back to town would have been too far to bring them back and forth daily. Note this excerpt from Messianic Jewish scholar Alfred Edersheim. Quote, that the Messiah was born in Bethlehem was a settled conviction. Equally so was the belief that he was to be revealed from Migdal Eder, the tower of the flock. End quote. Quote, this Migdal Eder was not the watchtower for ordinary flocks which pastured on the barren sheep ground beyond Bethlehem, but lay close to town, on the road to Jerusalem. A passage in the Mishnah leads to the conclusion that the flocks which pastured there were destined for temple sacrifices, and accordingly that the shepherds who watched over them were no ordinary shepherds. The latter were under the ban of rabbinism on the account of their necessary isolation from religious ordinances and their manner of life, which rendered strict legal observances unlikely, if not absolutely impossible. End quote. Quote, the same Mishnah also leads us to infer that these flocks lay out all year round, since they're spoken of as in the fields 30 days before Passover, that is, in the month of February, when in Palestine the average rainfall is nearly greatest. Thus, Jewish traditions in some dim manner apprehended the first revelation of the Messiah from Migdal Eder, where shepherds watched the temple flocks all year round. Of the deep symbolic significance of such a coincidence, it is needless to speak. End quote. Sukkot, Hannakuh, December 25th and Tevath. Some believe that Jesus was born during the Feast of Sukkot. However, Jesus could not have been born during Sukkot, since the Bible states that Joseph and Mary were going to Bethlehem, not Jerusalem, for a census, not a feast. Most feasts required a journey to the temple, including Sukkot. The Bible never mentions any such journey. The Bible states that Joseph and Mary were seeking shelter at an inn. If, however, they had been traveling to the Feast of Sukkot, they would have made shelter in a booth. Furthermore, the inns would not have been full since others would have been taking shelter in booths as well. Therefore, the idea that Jesus was born during the Feast of Sukkot is based on speculation, not on biblical evidence. In Part 2, We quoted the constitutions of the apostles, which listed Tevet as the 9th Hebrew month. Some today may see this as an error, citing Tevet as the 10th month. However, Josephus stated that the 9th month was Tevet during his time. Quote, according to the sentence of the elders, those that were of the tribes of Judah and Benjamin came together in 3 days on the 20th day of the 9th month, which, according to the Hebrews, is called Tevet, and according to the Macedonians, Apuleius. End quote. In the last post, we found that Jesus' birth date was calculated based on the integral age theory of ancient Judaism. Since we established that he was born in December, or the Hebrew month of Tevet, we can conclude that his birth likely took place during Hannakuh. Quote, the Christmas festival of December 25th rested on a very ancient tradition, which was meant by the 9th month. We have no difficulty in deciding. Reckoning after the Jewish and Roman calendars, we have now verified this additional historical fact, that Christmas was henceforth celebrated on the 25th day in the 9th month in the Jewish calendar, which corresponded to our December. If the body with which the divinity of Christ was like the dedication of the temple, and Christmas Day the feast of the true dedication of the temple, the leisure hour. Volume 22, end quote. In The Life and Times of Jesus the Messiah by Messianic scholar Alfred Edersheim, he states that there was once a Hebrew fast day on Tevet 9th that was later concealed. Edersheim believed that this was Jesus' birth date, December 25th. Quote, there is no adequate reason for questioning the historical accuracy of this date. The objections generally made rest on grounds which seem to me historically untenable. But a curious piece of evidence comes to us from a Jewish source. In the addition to the Megilloth Tanith, the 9th Tebeth is marked as a fast day, and it is added that the reason for this is not stated. Now, Jewish chronologists have fixed on that day as that of Christ's birth, and it is remarkable that, between the years 500 and 816 AD, the 25th of December fell no less than 12 times on the 9th of Tebeth. If the 9th Tebeth, or December 25th, was regarded as the birthday of Christ, we can understand the concealment about it. End quote. Thus, we can conclude that Christian history has preserved the actual date of Jesus' birth. Christ was likely born during the festival of Hannakuh in the month of Tevet, which would correspond to our December 25th and the Julian calendar date of January 6th. The celebration of his birth on December 25th is historically Christian and not pagan in origin.